I have a problem. In fact, I've had this problem for 2 or 3 years now, and now I'm sharing it with you. I guess you have that problem too. In order to try and solve this, well, we need to head into that hedge just there. So this is a Roman road that I'm stood on right now. Now we know that for a number of different reasons, not least the raised agger that I'm stood on. You won't see that on camera, so let me just take a picture for you and show you. Okay, I'll explain what an agger is later, but nevertheless, this Roman road is my problem. Scholars of old found this mile-long section in the late 1700s and declared it was a route between Salisbury and Marlborough, and that makes sense because there was evidence of a similar agger close to the Salisbury end. And this is the problem. We have a very short bit at the start, short bit at the end, but seemingly nothing in the middle. I've walked it, I've droned it, I've used the light detecting and ranging data thingy. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely no trace of it. In fact, 2 years ago we walked here with some members of the Roman Road Research Association, and we couldn't find anything physical on the ground during the entire day. Just a start and an end, but nothing for 20 to 25 miles in between. So that was it. That was my story. That was the puzzle that confused antiquarians of old as much as it did then as it does today. 1 mile either end maybe, and 25 miles in the middle of nothing. Absolutely nothing. Welcome to the story of the only way to find a Roman road. So this is Savernake Forest, and it's glorious. It's untouched for over 1,000 years, passed down 28 generations of lineage, and kept in the beautiful state that we see it today. It was, like many, much larger and stretches far down to Pewsey in the southeast. Now the northern section of this Roman road, the mile-long bit that we see in Savernake, just stops abruptly at the current boundary, the road. The fact that we know this wasn't the original boundary of the forest tells us that some of this route beyond here was clearly ploughed and agricultured to death. It tells us this formal route existed. So between Ivan Margary and Sir Richard Colt Hoare, well, they declared that this route they'd found in Savernake Forest went from Cunetio to the north of Savernake all the way down to Salisbury. Now Cunetio, you may recall from a Time Team dig, they refer to it as the taxman's haven because they found a monumental hoard of coins. So we know that Savernake was much bigger, and we know that because of that Anglo-Saxon charter. Wait, that gives me an idea. Tom, yes, you know you do those Anglo-Saxony chartery thingies? Yeah, you know the whole Old English thing. Brilliant! Right, I've got an idea, need your help, I'll be there in 5. So what exactly does a Roman road look like today? What would we be looking for in the ground? What do I mean when I say agger? Now if you already know that bit, I'll put a little yellow line along the bottom so you can skip it if you want to. But for those that want to know the context, here we go. Now Roman roads as we see them on the ground today in the formal sense were generally referred to as vias. Now we know this was a via because of the significant earthworks. A via has what's referred to as an agger, something I often go on about. A significant raised section in the middle in 99% of cases outside of towns. So that agger was made up of a number of layers of decreasing size. Now they were repaired over the 300 or 400 years they were in use, and that's why we often see quite significant sized aggers, albeit small layers in between. Now outside of this you have ditches. Some were potentially clay lined, where you'd see the equine variety of species, and then you'd have a ditch. Now the ditch is said to mark the boundary of the road, the formal boundary. Now all of that varied in size depending on a number of things, including the terrain. But in this instance we have no agger, and we have nothing in between that first and last mile. But it's okay, because we have a new direction, we have a Tom. Let's go find him. Okay, arrived in Easton Royal. Let's go find Tom. So for the last year I've been absolutely obsessed with a YouTube channel called Allotment Fox. A guy called Tom, who finds an Anglo-Saxon charter, goes to the location in the landscape and then tries to follow the charter's boundaries using that Anglo-Saxon charter. You really should go and subscribe to this channel, it's an absolute joy. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Tom published a video, one of his many videos on tracing this old Anglo-Saxon route across the landscape, and he did so on the charter of Enford.
Arrest of Averna, erst Staffe, up on the ditch to them Whalum, of them Whalon, on long hair paths.
My eyes lit up. This was very close to our route, and I wonder if this charter mentioned the route, Margery Route 44, that was to remain forever lost. Well, it turns out it did. Stretta. Well, now maybe we have this new way of finding a Roman road. Not physical, but one that follows charters. So I decided to ask Tom, as you've seen, and see if he could help me piece this together, this lost Roman road. So I found Tom. I'm a big fan of Tom. I love all the guests we have on, but I particularly love Tom's channel. I'll tell you more about that as we go on. Tom, how can you help us find Margery Route 44 with what you do?
Well, first of all, you're very kind saying those things. Yes, I look at old Saxon charters and old English names from very old documents, and I go and visit them. And you can interpret them. There are certain keywords, if we're talking about the context of Roman roads, the main one being strata, which is Old English for strata, and that's how the Romans made their roads, and it came down to us to modern English in the word street.
So this can really help us. So I've watched a video of yours maybe 2 weeks ago where you found an Anglo-Saxon charter, which sort of inspired me to say, right, Tom, we need to look further for this because this is perfect. So
Enford's a nice little charter.
So the wind got the better of the mic here for one or two sentences. It was quite wild. Now, Tom explained that this Enford charter has 3 key aspects to it that come within spitting distance of today's lost Roman road. Now, firstly, it mentions stretta twice, and we know that word means, to the Anglo-Saxons at least, that we are referring to a Roman road.
And secondly, we also have something called a Chester or Chester Herapath. And Herapath means highway, but originally meant army road. Chester is our modern English word Chester. So all those Roman places in Britain, those Roman cities, Winchester, Chichester. Is Chichester Roman?
Yes.
Yes. Manchester, all of these places are Roman sites. And we know they're Roman because of the word Chester. So it has 3 definite Roman words, Roman indicators in that charter.
Okay, so we'll come back to the Enford charter shortly. It's quite important and is quite the puzzle for today's video. But let's touch on 1 or 2 more that Tom found that might help us piece together more data points along this route. So we have Charter S154 Idmiston on the south end of this route, and this really does give us a clear data point on that southern side, and it tells us that we do have a Roman road here. And then we also have S370 Columborne charter. Back north to where we are now, I'll let Tom do the explaining. So this is Crow Down Clumps, but also
it's Guthredisberg. And also, this is another thing. If you're learning how to interpret charters, you can cross-reference. So there are 3 charters that touch this point from 3 different villages.
Okay.
So you have Collingbourne, which is Collinga Berne in Old English.
Yep.
You've got Burgage, which is Bergbach, which is just down there, and you've got what encompasses at a different period Burbage as well, which is Great Bedwin, and those 2 talk about Earthberg, which means earthbury, an earth fortification. So we have Collingbourne talks of Guthredisberg, which is Guthred's fortification, and the other 2 say Earth Fort.
But we're essentially talking about the same thing.
It's the same place.
An X on the landscape, a marker for us to work out. Yes.
Yeah. They're not 100% proof each individually, but you put them all together, it creates a picture.
Okay, so those three charters all point to the Burr, Guffensberg, and give us another data point of a heripath immediately to its east. So now we have the Idmiston and the Colomborn charters physically on the ground, gives us a good points for the alignment of this main Roman road. This is brilliant. So let's get back to the charter that inspired this video, the Enford charter, because this is a problem. So as already suggested, this Enford charter mentions Stretta twice, street. And of course it comes very close to our Margary Route 44, our missing Roman road. But that is where the usefulness of this charter seems to stop, because both of those Strettas mapped by Tom on this landscape are perpendicular to the actual Roman road. Well, this doesn't add up. There are no other major Roman roads here, so what's going on? So Langstretta?
Ond Longstrat is
Ond Longstrat. And that's where we are now. And we've walked maybe a kilometre, mile, not quite. And we found, my gut instinct said it was a holloway. All the way down the side of this for quite some distance now. We're torn, I'm torn, we're torn between, well, is this not a holloway at all? Is this actually the Agger? Is this a part of the Roman road? My question is, that means it's quite some bank of the Agger, which would mean it would have been repaired quite a lot, because there's no reason for it to be as high and stand out, but they do. This means that if that is part of a Roman Agger on this long strata, it adds up, but it means it's very important, really important, because it was repaired for such a long time. Or is it just a holloway? Are we getting overexcited? If I was dropped here without context, I'd say holloway, but there's so much more context to that from Tom and his Anglo-Saxon charter, which says this is a stretta. So that's leading me towards that direction, but there's more. So the next point on that charter, Rugenborg,
Rujanberge, something like, wow, oh god, the G's are awful. Rujanberge.
Okay, now the Balgay, that sounds like a tribe in Iron Age times, that general terms means hill or barrow.
No. Topographically it's nearly always a barrow, but sometimes you will find a hill.
Right.
And
we have one just there. We're exactly where it should be, but you're a little bit concerned, Tom, because...
No, I'm not concerned. I'm concerned I'm in the wrong place. I think the barrow is where it should be. I'm just in the wrong place.
Okay.
But
that's broadly where our boundary is.
Yes, yeah.
I like it. This says to me, well, here we are.
Yeah, this is what Grundy didn't have. The 19th century, early 20th century academics didn't have is satellite photographs, LiDAR, and they didn't leave their ivory towers.
Yes.
So this is the advantage we've got. This is the contribution we can make.
So we have a route referred to as Stretta, but we know it's not our Roman road because it runs perpendicular to it. But we know if we find the word Stretta, we have a Roman road, and this changes everything because now we have a new Roman road on our hands, perhaps a branch. So this is where our research on Route 44 kind of stops. It's been a really useful journey because we've got 3 or 4 charters which help us give us some data points along Route 44. We can kind of map it now in a much better way than what we ever have been able to do, better than any antiquarian, and that feels really good thanks to Tom. But now all of a sudden I have a new can of worms, a new rabbit hole that we're seemingly diving down with charters. I feel like I now need to map some of these branches. I need to do a map of every Roman road that ever existed, including all of these branches, because well, no one's ever done that, and the only way we can find these branches is using Anglo-Saxon charters. Okay, 2 really important things to take away from this video. Number 1, big thanks to Tom. Go and subscribe to his channel, Allotment Fox. I'll put the link in the pinned comment below. Number 2, let's do this. Let's map every single Roman road, because I don't think there is a really useful site at the moment that does this. So let's do this ourselves. If you think you've got some spare time and you can maybe help, maybe we'll do a Google open source or something where everyone can see it and view it and see the justification reach route, including the main vias, but also including these ones that we find, like today, these B roads, these branch roads. I'm going to put an email just here. Email me on that email if you've genuinely got some time and you want to help out and we can sort of work this project. Maybe a few of us could do it. And if you're still watching this video, it would really be helpful to me if you click on subscribe, wherever that be. And we'll see you this time next week.